Right, firstly, apologies for absence. I have one apology from Heather Dondy, the chairman of the Law and Ethics Committee. She unavoidably couldn't make it. Gordon, do you have any? Sam?
No, I haven't had any.
No, okay. All right, that's fine. We'll duly noted that we've got one.
No, I have apologies. Karen at the office. If you can hear me.
Yes, you
Yes,
have.
we can hear you.
Do you want to hear them or do you want me to send you the list?
How many are there?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
Oh, read them out then. That's fine.
Trevor Ward from Cumbria. Alistair McCann from Derbyshire. Sandra Nicholson from Oxfordshire. Pamela Booth Jones from Statham Shropps. Malcolm Carey from Suffolk. Peter Bates from Sussex, and Richard Wheeler, Dick Wheeler from Sussex. And finally, Stephanie Galvin from Warwickshire.
Okay. All right, thank you. Right, okay, on we move. The first item on the agenda is the announcement of the EBU awards. Obviously, we haven't got the award winners here to present them to them, and I think you've been sent all the names, but just for the record, I will read out the names of the various award winners. I won't read all their citations. They're going to be published in English Bridge in due course and on the website. And also, it seems a bit mean, but if we could not hold up things by applause, just sort of mentally note people as I go past if you want to, and nod encouragingly. Right. A silver award is going to Andrew Cambites of Gloucestershire. Diamond awards, which are the playing awards for sustained international success, go to Gunnar Hallberg and Nevena Senior, doing our bit for the English cause there. The Tony Pridey Award, given in recognition of an outstanding contribution to the game of bridge in its entirety, goes to Peter Donovan, who has been writing the Daily Mail bridge column for almost as long as I've been alive. All the other award winners have requested that their awards be sent in the post or presented to them locally. Peter Donovan is unusual in that he's asked me to present his award to him in the pub. So with heavy heart, I shall take myself to a pub in Kensington and hand over his award to him. Right, the Dimmy Fleming award winners, happily quite a few this year. Elizabeth Kelly from the Manx Bridge Union, possibly our first Dimmy Fleming for the Isle of Man, not sure. Pat Beasley from Leicestershire, Neil Beasley from Leicestershire, Peter Pennington Smith from Norfolk, John Withers from Staffordshire and Shropshire, which I can barely say, Dick Wheeler from Sussex, Elaine Meakin from Warwickshire, and finally Stuart Davis from Yorkshire. Stuart will be familiar to a lot of you as a tournament director, not just in his native Yorkshire. And finally, the Young Player Awards this year, instead of a Young Player and a Young Partnership of the Year, we're awarding 2 Young Player Awards, one to Liz Gahan and one to Ben Norton. Ben, you may well be aware, already making his mark in the Open team and hoping to play in the European Championships in Madeira if they happen. We will see whether that comes to pass or not. At the moment, I think it might, but no stronger than that. Right, the minutes of the 27th of November last year AGM. Are there any matters of accuracy from anybody? No, nobody seems terribly interested in that. It was a long time ago. And then we have matters arising. Are there any matters arising that aren't covered elsewhere on the agenda? Sorry, I'm flicking through both the papers and trying to look at people. Nobody appears to be waving madly about this, so we'll assume there are no matters arising. and move on to 3 resolutions to amend the bylaws. We'll take them in order, and the person who I have asked to talk you through this is Anthony Golding, a board member of some standing, and our sort of in-house legal expert. So I will cede the floor to him. What we'll do is we will take a vote after each bylaw change. There are 3. We'll take a vote after each, and Sam will then send me the results, and I will announce them to a waiting world. We can, of course, after Anthony has, we'll take them one at a time, so Anthony can talk his way through the first one. Then we can have any discussion if necessary, and then a vote, and then we'll do the same for the second one, and same for the third. Is that all clear? Nobody said no. Good. Okay, Anthony, off you go. He's gone home.
I think having everyone on mute helps to not hear anyone saying no.
Yeah, that's the plan.
The first resolution is not actually a bylaw change. It's just a resolution under the articles to increase the number of directors from a maximum of 10 to a maximum of 11, which gives the ability to appoint a 3rd co-opted director. Since the lockdown in particular, we've been finding the clubs have needed a lot more support, and it was felt that it would be useful at this stage to have an additional director with a specific club focus. There will be some consultation with clubs to try and find a panel from whom the board can nominate or appoint an additional director if this goes through. So the proposal is an ordinary resolution pursuant to Article 10 to increase the maximum number of directors to 11 and the consequential provisions construed accordingly. Are there any questions?
Paul Roberts is.
Yeah.
Paul Roberts, then Alan Mould, please.
Yeah, thank you. No problem with the principle, but I'm wondering why, if this is intended to be an ongoing appointment, why it is then planned to be co-opted rather than elected.
I think primarily that the club focus is something that we are currently seeing the need for. We don't know that that will continue once we get back to face-to-face, although it may well do, but it gives the flexibility if some other area arises that we feel it would be useful to have a board member for, that we could co-opt for that instead. But at the moment, I don't think there's any intention for it not to be continue to be a club-focused director. In terms of making it an elected position, we could do that. We can do that at a future AGM if need be. That would entail a change to the articles, which is a 75%. I mean, that's just a formality, but or hopefully, but we could do that. But the ability that we're looking at here is just to increase the numbers, which under the Article 10 is an additional possible co-opted position.
Yes, I think we wanted to do something now, and we wanted to get it done, achieved fairly quickly, because we're keen to have club representation on the board, and we thought we didn't really have time to consider properly something that would need a 75% vote. So we're putting that slightly on the back burner, just getting someone in place, and then we'll think about it a bit more as to how we behave in the future.
The other thing in terms of making it an elected position is, of course, the clubs don't have votes. So there's no mechanism for them actually to elect a director as such.
Okay, Alan Mould, do you still want to say something?
No, I was about to ask exactly the same question. Manchester was interested in why it was an appointed director rather than an elected one, which seemed much more democratic, but that has been answered.
Okay. All right. Has anybody else got anything
Paul
to
Roberts
say?
has another question, I think.
Right, and then Jeffrey Allerton, then Peter Hassenson. I can see waving in that order, please.
I'd just like to come back on that point, Chairman. I can certainly see the merit of it being arranged this way for speed, but I mean, personally, I think it has long been a complaint that clubs don't have any direct representation on the board, and I do think it would look a lot more democratic if we could find a way of making it elected, whether it is by giving clubs some form of vote. I can't imagine that's beyond the EBU's capability, or in terms of asking clubs in each county to mandate their representatives in favour of their shareholders in favour of something.
Beyond our imagination or our ability, but it was in terms of having to get these papers out a few weeks ago and only coming to the decision to do this a few days before that. So
could I then ask, please, Chairman, that the board come back to next year's AGM with either some proposals as to how it could be elected or some very clear reasons as to why it shouldn't be?
That's perfectly reasonable. Certainly. Jeffrey Allerton next.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm slightly confused why we need a person to be specifically on the board. If you want someone to represent clubs, or indeed any specific task, then you can appoint someone. The board can appoint someone to work on their behalf in that area. A board member would normally be responsible for the whole of the company. The other point is we already have 10 directors now. Surely at least a couple of those, most of them probably have a club and you'd think they would be able to represent clubs themselves. I don't see why we need a new 11th person specifically to represent clubs. And if they did have an 11th person, surely they should be elected.
Okay. Peter Hassenson. Can't hear you.
Hello, can you hear me now?
Yeah, actually, I preferred it before.
I'm sure you did, Ian. Good. Welcome to your first meeting as chairman. We have 10 board directors comprising 8 elected and 2 nominated. In the time that we've had 8 elected and 2 nominated, in my experience, only about a quarter of the time have we had the full complement. And if I look on the EBU website now, again, we don't have the full complement. So I don't quite understand why we need an 11th board member. Surely one of the 2 appointed could deal with clubs. But more specifically, we don't have specialists for anything. We don't have anyone representing tournament players. We don't have anybody representing teachers. We don't have anybody representing counters. That's not the way we're set up. We're just set up to have 8 elected directors and 2 appointed directors, 10 in total. And it's up to the board to divide up their portfolios as they see fit. I had a look through the portfolios yesterday. None of them seem too taxing for at least half of the board. So I just don't understand why one of the existing cannot take on the role. Also, don't take this the wrong way. We have 3 officers, and if we then have 3 appointed, it would mean that the non-elected members are in the minority, and that sits very uncomfortably with me. I don't like that idea. I can sit comfortably with having, if we must, a 3rd elected, but not appointed. Anyway, that's my speech. Thank you very much for listening.
I think the officers are all elected as well. So, I mean, you're sort of positing a situation where the officers and the non-elected members gang up on the elected members who aren't officers.
In one.
Okay, if you say so. All right, has anybody else got anything to say on the matter?
Ian Sidgwick.
Richard Ray, Hanson Isle of Wight.
Yes, presumably you've got a name in mind if you're going to co-opt fairly quickly. And therefore, is there any reason why they couldn't have therefore put themselves forward for election?
Well, again, we did this. It would have been very late in the day to do that. And we don't have someone in mind because we're not planning to impose somebody on the clubs. The whole point of having them appointed at the moment is that the clubs can somehow get together and appoint them themselves, not somebody that we pick out of a hat.
How would you do that then?
Well, we'd circularize the clubs and give them an opportunity to put themselves forward, and then if there was more than one name, ask them to hold a vote amongst themselves.
Amongst the clubs themselves?
Yeah. Club representatives, club chairman or something, I don't know.
I just interject and say, this is not any director who is appointed or elected has responsibility, as I think Paul said, for the entire, or no, I think it was Alan said, for the entire company. It is just that within the board, certain tasks are allocated, but that doesn't mean you're not a director for the entire company. So this is just that that was the intention for this additional co-opted position. That would be their focus, but that would mean they would still be a full director in full sense. And I think we haven't worked out the best way of consulting clubs to get the relevant appointment. And that's something that would happen, assuming that this resolution passes.
Okay, I'm not.
Sorry, can I come back on that? I thought you wanted to get this through co-option because there was an immediate need, and yet you haven't even thought about how the clubs, you'll get names from the clubs, and so that's going to take a bit of time, and then you might have to have a vote. I can't.
It's not going to take that long.
Well, what's your time scale on this? Because I do have worries about the number of non-elected directors.
Okay.
So Ian, may I ask one last question, if I may?
If you must.
Yeah, can you just explain to me, because I don't quite understand. It says in our articles that we can only have a maximum of 10. So how can we have an 11th without getting a 75% vote? Can you explain that part to me?
Anthony?
Yes, if you look at Article 10, it says, unless otherwise determined by ordinary resolution, the maximum number of directors shall be 10.
Right, and what's an ordinary resolution, my ignorance?
50%.
No, where is that shown in our what an ordinary resolution is?
That is part of company law, which is incorporated.
Right, so you don't know where, does it specifically refer to it here, where it's 75 and where it's 50, or it doesn't say that?
No, where references in the articles to special resolution mean they require 75%, ordinary resolution requires 50%.
Right. What would a special resolution be?
Changing the articles.
Right.
For example.
So why wouldn't we be changing the articles here? I don't quite understand.
We're not changing the articles, we're applying a provision of the articles.
Right, okay, thank you.
Okay. Bear with me while I flash across and see if I can see anybody's hand raised.
Ian Sidgwick is, I think.
Ian Sidgwick, yes, gotcha.
Yes, I just want to make the observation that no one disagrees that the clubs need a bit more emphasis. So the principle of this strategy seems to be universally agreed by everyone at the meeting, which is good. But the other point I wanted to make was, it's partly been made already, but the vast majority of bridge is played at the clubs, the vast majority. So it's got to be core to every consideration of all the directors. But I welcome a bit more emphasis on it because I think it's a move in the right direction.
Okay, well, yes, I think that's fair. I mean, sort of all the directors have their individual responsibilities, and they also have overriding responsibilities, as has been mentioned a couple of times. But the individual responsibilities at the moment do not stretch as far as somebody only taking responsibility for the clubs under the umbrella of being a director of everything. That's why we would like somebody.
Well, the emphasis is welcome.
Okay, right. Anybody else waving their hand? No, can't see anybody.
I don't know why you can't see me, Ian.
Because I'm not looking at you, Alan, but I am now. We were just about to have our first online vote. I was getting really excited about that. But anyway.
Sorry, Ian, I didn't intend to speak on this subject, but I thought perhaps I should speak for the silent majority, because we've heard from quite a lot of people who have reservations. And I sort of understand those, but I don't see any reason why we shouldn't, try and help the board run the company the way they want to here. So I just want to speak up in a sense in favour of the resolution.
Well, I'm glad that I saw you waving there, Alan. I knew I could rely on you. Okay, thank you very much for that helpful contribution. Okay, I think if there's nothing else, I think, Sam, can you start a vote, please? Only vote if you're allowed to. I'm not voting because I'm not.
Can you remind people they have to press submit once they've clicked on the dot?
Yeah, click on your dot, click on submit, and we're off to China on a boat.
Okay, we've got 50 votes in, so I think that's about
That's
everybody.
probably it. All right, Sam, if you would email me the result, please.
Okay.
Anthony, if you'd like to kick off the next amendment, the next bylaw change, please.
The next is a bylaw change which is resolution 4.2. It was sent to the shareholders with the papers. It's changing everything in the bylaws apart from the disciplinary procedures, which are the subject of the next resolution. The main change in the front end, as it were, is to make it clear that online bridge is included in the provisions. While we were doing that, there were a few tidying up points and clarification points, like in the old version, member meant shareholder as well as a member of bridge playing member. And that has caused confusion in the past. So I've just changed that to say shareholder, so that member just now means playing member when it's used, and shareholder means shareholder. Are there any questions about the front end provisions? Could we put it to the vote then? Oh, sorry, David Guild has one.
Just one question. The director who's taken over responsibility for the clubs, that would include the online clubs presumably as well.
I would have thought so, yes.
Okay, fine.
Okay. Right, at this point, I should be able to announce what the results of the election are, and I have got them. Well done, Sam. In favour of the motion, 72% against 28%, so motion carried. Right. Gosh, that went well. All right, Sam, if you could, unless anybody else has anything to say on the second resolution, Sam, stick your panel up. That didn't sound very polite, did it? Okay. Do we have a result?
Oh, yeah, we've got a resolution. I'll just send it to you now.
Out of interest, if I have two votes, does my vote count twice or only once?
In this at this stage, I think it's just once. This counts as a show of hands.
Right.
Yes.
There is a provision, obviously, if it's close or if people want to call for a poll, they can do so. And then there is a separate procedure we've got, which would allow numbers of votes to count.
to put both hands up.
Yeah.
Yes, if you're the one person who voted against the last resolution, then I will quite happily include your other vote and make it 2 people voting against it.
Could I just ask a question about the procedure, please?
Yes, please.
Obviously, one can vote for or against. If one wishes to abstain, does one just not vote at all? So one can't actually register an abstention.
You could message Sam and say abstaining.
Wouldn't it be easier to actually have an abstention bit on the form?
If we do this again, then we will. Good point. Right. Okay. Up at the crease again, Mr. Golding, please.
Okay, so the resolution 4.3 is a proposal to change the disciplinary procedures contained in the bylaws. As you'll have read in the chairman's latest posting and on the website, Online Bridge has led to a large upswing in the number of cheating cases being investigated and prosecuted. The principal aim of the proposed changes is to prevent those charged with cheating from continuing to do so while the case is ongoing, and to deter would-be cheats from doing so. We hear a large number of complaints along the lines of, why is X still playing in my club game when I've reported him for cheating? One part of the solution is to speed up the disciplinary process, which has been taking, unfortunately, somewhat long. And we're working to do that by recruiting additional volunteers, and remember, this is all done by volunteers, to assist in the hearings and in some of the proposed changes, tightening the timescales in the disciplinary process. Obviously, it would be wrong to prevent someone who's merely under investigation from continuing to play. But we feel that once there is enough evidence for a charge to be brought, it is reasonable to do so. The accused has the right to apply for a stay of the interim suspension if it is disproportionate, and the proposed rule provides criteria for determining whether to grant a stay. For example, it would take too long, or it's a minor offence, or it's as listed in the proposed changes. Because an accusation of cheating affects a player's reputation, we don't think it's appropriate to publicise the charge before a hearing. And for the same reason, we've proposed that the hearings should be private, although the accused may bring an observer as well as a representative. On a conviction, the fact of a conviction and the related penalty will be publicised, even if there's going to be an appeal. Hopefully, as more cases are reported and it becomes clear that cheats can and are being caught, others will stop cheating or be deterred from doing so. So that's the rationale for the changes. The form of the changes was sent out in a markup document, so hopefully everyone's had a chance to read them, and I imagine there will be the odd question. I will leave it to Ian to work out the order.
Thank you. Right, has anybody got any questions at the moment? Alan Mould. Alan, then Jeffrey, then Alan Wolf, then Lynn Fry, in that order, please.
Manchester has a number of concerns, I think, about this proposal. Let me start, first of all, by saying that we're obviously all in favour of clamping down on cheating and getting cheats, as it were, to the jury as fast as possible, and if they are found guilty of cheating, then getting them out the game. And the suggestions that the timescales will be shortened are obviously very welcome. But Manchester has a number of concerns, one of which is philosophical, I think two which is practical. The proposal here is that effectively we are changing from a well-established principle that says that you are innocent until you are proven guilty to effectively a proposal that says you are guilty until you are proven innocent. And it is disingenuous to say that as soon as somebody is stopped from playing, that everyone won't know what's going on, because people know that people have stopped playing. You know, they will have to pull out of knockout events and things. They will have to pull out of things that they have agreed to play in. So it is certainly the case that the proposal is to move to a position where you're guilty until you're proven innocent. There are the two practical concerns that we have is that I'm far from convinced, and Manchester is far from convinced, that this will actually do what is being suggested, which is speed up the process. Because if you are a member of a prosecution panel, at the moment, as I understand it, your job is basically to see if there is a case to answer, at which point it's passed over to the disciplinary panel. If, however, as soon as it leaves the prosecution panel, the person has a suspension, then it seems to me that the prosecution panel is very likely to be absolutely 300% certain that they believe somebody is guilty before they pass it on, in which case they're going to dig more and more, they're going to spend more time over it. I'm not convinced it will therefore slow down the process, speed up the process, it might slow it down. And the third thing, which I'm sure has been taken into account by the EBU, and I'm sure they've taken advice on this, is that I am concerned about, Manchester concerned about some of the legal implications of this. I am not suggesting for a second that we should write our regulations or our bylaws for the benefit of professionals, but I just wonder what happens if a professional ends up with a suspension which might last 6 months, 8 months, whatever. At the end of it is then found innocent, and one would have thought the first thing they would then do is sue the EBU for loss of earnings, loss of reputation, and the rest. And I thought the EBU could do without any financial hit if that happened, if it could. And I'm aware that I think it's the proposed 8.13, no defendant shall have any recourse against the company. And again, I'm no lawyer, I'm not suggesting any legal knowledge, but I just wonder if that prevents suing for something like loss of earnings or something. So that is the concerns that Manchester have.
Okay. Well, to take your first point, I think you're not the first person to raise the question of whether this tramples all over people being innocent until proven guilty. And I'm afraid that it doesn't. There is still a presumption of innocence, but if I could just draw two simple parallels with the world of criminal law and the world of employment law, it's quite normal for people accused of things in criminal law to be held on remand or to have some sort of restraining order put on them to prevent them continuing to harass their ex-wife or whatever it is. It doesn't presume any sort of guilt. It's all pending a hearing. In employment law, if you're about to have a hearing for gross misconduct or whatever, it's absolutely standard to have all your belongings shoved in a cardboard box, escorted to the door, put in a taxi, and told, "See you in a week's time at your hearing." So there's no sense in which the EBU is somehow more divine than the law of the land or the courts of the land or the industrial tribunals of the land. We do not hold ourselves to a higher standard than that. What we're trying to do is we're trying to protect those people who are innocent, the people who are not cheating, the people who are sitting down, 99% of our members, dead honest, sitting down, playing against people that they know have been reported for cheating to the EBU and that they know are up on a charge, and yet they still have to play against them, knowing that they're cheating, knowing in slight inverted commas there, knowing that they're cheating and knowing that they're not playing a true game and a fair game. It's all very well to talk of fairness, but it cuts both ways. I mean, what we're trying to achieve with these bylaw changes is three things. Firstly, we want to be fast, or at least faster. It's easy to blame committees and panels for not pushing things through as quickly as they should, but it's not entirely fair because these things do tend to get a lot more complicated than you would imagine. There's very little rubber stamping at any point during the journey. And we are running out of volunteers. On Monday, I think it was, I sent Nick Doe, the LNE secretary, a list of 8 names, 4 new names for the prosecution panel, 4 new names for the disciplinary panel. And frankly, that's tapped me out. I don't know anybody else. I'm going to have to start drawing names out of a hat like we do for the raffle for the simultaneous pairs winners. We need to be fast. We need to be firm with people, but we need to be fair with people. We have procedures for the disciplinary panels. We have sentencing guidelines, and the two people who lead the disciplinary panel for me, and I have discussed this on many occasions, we are as concerned with making sure that people who are innocent are found innocent as we are with making sure that people who are found guilty are guilty. So we're determined to be firm, we're determined to be fair, but fairness cuts both ways and it works for everybody. So we're not above the law, we are merely trying to fall in with common practice elsewhere. And as for whether a lawyer should have a look at our procedures and see whether it's sort of cast iron that we do this and that we get sued by professional players further on down the line. Well, Anthony is actually a lawyer and he's been one for 40 years, I would imagine, or so. That's not to say he can't take advice from friends and colleagues, and I'm sure he will, to make sure that this is all tied up in a bundle before we start applying any interim suspension orders. But really, we have to do something. We cannot allow this game to continue to be corrupted by a small number of people who cheat and cheat and cheat. And then when they're told that we've spotted their cheating and that they're going to be up before the L&E or the disciplinary panel, they carry on cheating. Really, I think that it's nice to be nice. It's nice to believe that we must allow everybody to continue on the absolute presumption of innocence, and that is true. But you know, you've got to be realistic about this. It's eroding the game. There's a letter from the Nordic Bridge Association to the World Bridge Federation on our website. It puts the case very clearly. I think that if we allowed ourselves to step back at this point, then it will be very difficult to get back to where we need to be when dealing with these people. Any further questions? Adrian Darnell, I think, before I flashed past.
Thank you. Sorry, just unmuting myself. Thank you. Yes. Quite clearly, the entire process and its implementation is under increasing strain, a consequence of online bridge, and we all of us want to rid our game of cheats. I wonder if I might make 3 suggestions to improve the process. 1, we all have a desire to see a much quicker process. Would it not be possible, indeed very welcome, if the process had got a number of milestones in? So it says, for example, that normally within 4 weeks of receipt, this would have happened. There are no milestones at all. One of the things that concerns many members in the Northeast about the proposed temporary suspension is that there is absolutely no timetable within the current process. So this could be a very lengthy suspension. So I would welcome, the Northeast would suggest, that there are some timescales identified in the process. The second proposal that we would suggest is that in order to take some of the stress off the current implementation, what about inviting counties to identify very well experienced players within their own county and put their names forward to the L&E so that the personnel, the resource available to implement the process is thereby improved. There are lots and lots of people with great talent and experience out in the counties who could be called upon. And the third proposal is one that was put forward at the most recent meeting of the Northern Counties. And it changes the emphasis. At the moment, the proposal, I think, to most eyes, the current proposal does change the presumption of innocence, while at the same time identifying that a member could argue for a stay of execution. If you turn that on its head and change the emphasis, I think people might become a little bit more comfortable and say that in exceptional circumstances, a member charged will be subject to an interim suspension. Not presume that there's a suspension, presume no suspension, but in exceptional circumstances, implement one.
Anthony, perhaps you be prepared to answer that last point.
What the problem with that, I think, partly is that who knows what exceptional circumstances are. And you're putting a burden on a determining body to decide, are these exceptional circumstances? I think if anything was capable of being challenged, that would be, say, and whereas the present proposal sets out specific criteria for a stay of execution. I think in terms of the putting in a timetable, I think it'd be a good goal to try and achieve that as a document from the disciplinary committee or the LNE, rather than build it into the bylaws. I'd be reluctant to do that, because if you fail to meet that timetable, you could find people not having their hearing and getting away with it.
That point is well made.
But yes, I think it would be a good idea if we can get whichever the relevant part of the LNE is to try and firm up an indicative timetable.
Terrific.
I agree with that, and we're sort of behind the scenes. We're taking steps towards this anyway. I get a fascinating weekly spreadsheet updating me where all cases are, and I think it's reasonable to extend the time strictures that we place on defendants to our own side as well, such as you must do this within a certain period of time, we must do this within a certain amount of time. I wouldn't argue with that. And as to increased manpower, I think last month I asked for a general request for members of prosecution panels and disciplinary panels to go on the web. Quite happy to send something similar to the counties, inviting them to put people on there as well. No problem with that whatsoever. All right. Anybody else?
Yes, I want to speak. I want to say we at Middlesex are 100% opposed to this. We feel that it's very wrong to restrict a person's playing until they're convicted. There's actually a case underway at the moment where the person was told in May that he was going to be formally charged. He was then, at which point the suspension would have happened. He was then told in August that it would go to a hearing, and so far nothing more. Now the committee have to give him 3 weeks notice of a hearing. This is obviously, it's not going to happen this year. This is going to be 7 months of a person who is adamant that he is innocent being suspended. We think that is very wrong, and we're absolutely opposed to it. We're also opposed to the fact that these hearings are going to be conducted in private. We feel that the whole situation needs to be open to scrutiny, and that while it's held in private, this is not possible. We feel that this is very much prejudicial against the person who's being accused. So basically, I agree very much with what Alan Mould said and Adrian Darnell. There must be a timescale. All these timescales are placed on the accused person, no timescale whatsoever on the Laws and Ethics Committee. We just need to start seeing it from the other person's point of view.
Okay, well, I think that point has actually already been made. As opposed, on the question of meetings being disciplinary hearings being private, that is actually to protect somebody who is accused of a charge. They are allowed to bring an observer as well as a representative. They won't. What happens will not go unnoticed by them and anybody supporting them. It's to prevent people who are not involved in the case attending just because they fancy it, because things can come out that aren't necessarily eventually going to be directly relevant to the verdict and whatever sanction is imposed, or indeed is not imposed if someone is innocent. But if things come out that that person does not want to be made public, particularly en route to innocence, then having observers there in the room, so who have nothing to do with the case, is really not in their interests.
Do you really think that people will come along just to have a look at what's going on? I don't think they will.
They're allowed to. The point is not whether they will or not, it's that they're allowed to.
I understand.
And they shouldn't be allowed to.
I don't agree.
Well, okay, you're entitled not to agree, but I'm afraid that's what the board feels. It's in the interest of protecting a defendant.
I think it ties in with the same thing I said earlier about not having it publicly known until a conviction that the person is under charge. Now, I take Alan's point that if they start not playing, there may be inferences drawn, but at the moment that there is no knowledge until conviction. If the hearing is public, and I think if we're going to have it public, it needs to be notified so that the public is aware of it. Making it private is actually a reflection of what's happened in practice to date, because it's never actually been publicized when there was going to be a hearing. And I think if you're having public justice, there should be. And that would mean that the name got out before the hearing and with the consequential potential damage. That's one of the reasons why we thought it was better to go make it formally private rather than practically private as it currently is.
Okay, Malcolm Pryor, then Joy Mail. Malcolm, speak.
Yes, okay. Just say that there's widespread support for what Alan Mould said. There's a perception that this is becoming like a witch hunt with the rights of the accused not being respected in any way. And the process is not seen to be either fair or accurate at the moment. And unfortunately, there's a leak, a frequent leak. So I can tell you 5 people that are currently under investigation, and I have no business to know about them. But the word's got out. So the person accused is just not having their rights respected, I'm afraid. So I can't accept that we should be banning people from playing until they've had their hearing. And the process is only going to work if you can go from an accusation to a hearing in 2 weeks. And if you can't do that, then leave the bylaws as they are.
Joy Mail.
I'm afraid that Sussex would be opposing this resolution. Alan put it very succinctly, and Adrian came up with some good suggestions. I feel it's been rushed through almost. I'm not sure how wide a consultation you've had with the people who are involved with the disciplinary process or the Law and Ethics Committee. But we have to remember that basically people are innocent until they're proved guilty. There is no set timetable, and I think it's jolly unfair that people could be waiting up to 9 months, maybe longer, without being able to play in what they want to play in, without it coming to a hearing. It's just going against all that I think we stand for and that we abide by. I hear what you say about the hearings being held now in private, but I've sat on some hearings, and I have to say, nobody has ever turned up because, as Anthony preempted me by saying, nobody knew about it. So why don't we just carry on? I think we have to be seen to be open to scrutiny. And if people make it their business to want to come, I think they have. I sit on other tribunals in life, and the public are allowed to sit at the back. I'm a bit worried that the EBU are getting out of step on this one. Everything else has been said. Thank you.
And yet we're and yet we're not out of step with criminal law or employment law or any other law you care to mention.
Ian, could I just
Trevor,
come back on Ian? Could I just come back on employment law? You tell the tale of the guy being asked to clear his desk and walk away with a cardboard box full of his belongings. That guy or lady is actually still on full pay, so isn't actually being punished in employment law. Mostly people are on full pay.
Mostly, but not exclusively.
But in the bridge world, we're actually starting the punishment for the person from the day of charge. I'll say no more, sorry.
Okay, Trevor Hobson, then James Smith.
Yes, going on your criminal law analogy, you can accuse people of breaking the law, but it takes quite some time and quite some evidence before they're actually charged. Could you talk us through the process between accusation and charge in this context?
Yes, what happens is, at the moment, you'll forgive me if I deal with online only at the moment, because otherwise we could be here all night, but the principles are the same. We have an investigation committee who, once a suspicion is raised about somebody, starts digging into their online records and looks at all the hands they played with, all the partners they played, and they look at hundreds of hands for an accused player. This can, in fact, go into the thousands. Initially, one person looks at them and then comes to a conclusion. Then another person looks at them and comes to a conclusion. And if that, I think this is the case, if that conclusion is the same, then a third person is invited and they all agree that is the conclusion. And then they submit a report to the prosecution panel, which neatly folds up all the investigation they've been doing, the hundreds of hands they've been looking at, the detailed analysis of all of them, passes it on to the prosecution panel, I think with an extract of a certain number of cases that appear to be the most clear cut, but with all the underlying information behind that, so that the prosecution panel can then burrow down further should they wish to, if they don't find what they've seen quite convincing enough, although I think most of the time it is. At that point, if the prosecution panel decides it's a goer, then they will appoint a prosecutor and the person involved will be charged. That's basically how it works. That's how you get to charge. Charging is a long way after accusation. A lot of water passes under the bridge. There is a lot of investigation, and it's not just one person doing it. It's part of a panel that does it, and then it goes on to another panel and they look at it, and then the charge is made. Charges are not made lightly, right? I hope that answers your question. James Smith.
Thank you, Chairman. I just wanted to ask, since, say, March the 22nd, which I think was the first date of total lockdown, can you give us some idea of how many cases, and I'm speaking specifically and only about online, have been brought to the EBU's attention?
Let's see, I've actually just drawn up a spreadsheet. I have got 37 cases, I think, of which half a dozen are not online. So it's about 30 cases.
And are you sort of implying that online is opening a way for people who wish to cheat to exercise this option?
Yes.
I know a lot of, I just want to share this with everybody, a lot of my club members, I'm chairman of the Monday Club in Battersea, Clapham Junction, a lot of them won't play online. A, they're elderly and a few other things, but they feel it is a, you know, it's a cheat's haven. And the more I try to dissuade them that it isn't, and, you know, they're just as protected here, seems to fall on deaf ears. Thank you.
Thank you, James. Right. I can't see any more hands waving. Ron.
Yes, if I could just comment, both as a board director and a personal view that I hold. I think it's very creditable that everybody's focusing on the human rights, as it were, of the accused, and that's right, and that reflects well on all of us and our sense of decency. But what we have to look at here is internet play, and as a result, the opportunity to cheat has been vastly increased. And cheating is just a word, but the entire distaste and pollution of the game that this creates is something we have to tackle. We've heard of 30 odd cases. I feel from my own experience, that is just the extreme cases, and they are the tip of the iceberg. It's something that has to be dealt with firmly and quickly. And I know Ian is working hard to speed things up, and he's being encouraged by other members of the board. Our task, and we accept that, is to speed this up, but we need your support so that we have the armoury with which to tackle the really bad offenders. I'm sure a minor matter, nobody's going to get, and a one-off, nobody's going to get really upset. But the serial offenders who just treat the whole issue as a joke and spoil it for everybody else, we really do have to deal with that.
Okay, thank you, Ron. Okay, I'm just going to flick through.
Jeffrey was got his hand up.
Oh, did we not get Jeffrey? Okay, Jeffrey, then David Guild, then we'll call a halt if that's okay.
Ken Sue has had her hand up forever, Sue Phillips.
Okay, sorry, I haven't seen that at all. Okay, Jeffrey, Sue, then David.
So I do agree with the points made by a lot of shareholders already about people should be found guilty before they are suspended. And then that really points to the main thing is to try and speed up the process. I appreciate you're putting more resources at it, but by having the more resources, you should see the fruits of that quite quickly. And then there'll be less of a problem. Your proposal actually had 2 or 3 parts to it, and one part which I find far more reasonable is to say that once someone has been found guilty, they should be suspended at that point and not wait for for the outcome of an appeal. And the other concern I have is that several members of the Laws and Ethics Committee who are investigating these cases, Martin Poole, Sarah Bell, who's doing a lot of investigating in Francis Hinden, they are all strongly against this proposal because it puts the onus on them to find someone guilty or not by deciding whether or not to charge somebody.
Sorry, I'm not saying you're not telling the truth, but that's sort of hearsay. I mean,
it's not hearsay.
Well, you're saying that other people have said something to you. I mean,
well, sorry, other people. I mean, this is something I was told by first hand. So,
but the proposal has come from the disciplinary panel,
right?
So we assume that they're okay with it.
Yeah, so it doesn't. But if the process was speeded up, then people can have their hearing and be found one way or the other.
Yeah, this is all very well, but the process can only be speeded up so much. If I thought for one moment that we did not convict, we did not convict, sorry, giving myself away here, we did not suspend on charge, I would expect as a result of that prosecution panel to turn around a case within 2 or 3 days of the investigatory panel passing it to them, and I would then pass it to the disciplinary panel, and I would expect the disciplinary panel to come to a conclusion within a week after the hearing of the response from the accused. This isn't going to happen. It's not as easy as that. I was speaking to someone yesterday who is currently serving on 2 disciplinary panels, and he actually said, it's all very well to try and speed things up. Things are being speeded up as much as possible, but there is a lot of work involved. You have to go through everything. Disciplinary panels in particular have very strict guidelines as to how they should behave. They have to tick all the boxes, go through all the evidence, make sure everybody has their say. I would love all this to happen in an afternoon as soon as the 14-day period for the accused to respond happened on the 15th day, but it's not going to happen. We have to be realistic in what we can expect of people. We have to be doubly realistic because all the people that are doing this are volunteers. There are 2 members of staff involved. In fact, there are 1.5 members of staff involved. In fact, there's 1 2/5 members of staff involved in this. One person at the moment, his full-time job is processing these cases. We've had to bring in someone to work 2 days a week just to ease his workload. Everybody else is a volunteer, and you can only ask so much of volunteers because they have other time constraints as well. And you can only work with what you've got. You could say to me, well, if that disciplinary panel can't do it within a week, get one that will. But I'm running out of people. I've got a large disciplinary panel, a large prosecution panel. They're all doing the best they can, but they're not a sausage machine. And we cannot expect them to do so. They make their best efforts, and they do work hard. But I think what I keep hearing is that everybody must be quicker. Yes, they must be. Yes, they will be. But there are limits, and it's not going to work miracles.
But you've had 30 cases.
Yeah, coming from an HR background, I look carefully at the proposal. And I don't see any difficulty with it. I think it's good that the board are tackling this and tackling it early. The only thing I would like to see is milestones as aims setting for the disciplinary committee to work to. There will always be times when they can't hit them, but if they've got something to work to, that will be clear and open.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you, Sue. That's point well made and something that we've taken on board. We will, but we can't have that, as Anthony's said, as part of the resolution because we don't want to be fettered by it. All right. Okay.
David Guild.
Oh, sorry, David. Sorry, forgot. How could I forget?
Just a question on the Nordic letter that you mentioned. I don't see that supporting the resolution, nor actually declining the resolution. It's actually neutral. What it was saying was that there's a huge problem. The World Bridge Federation needs to prioritise it, but it also said that statistical work is actually, it questioned the robustness and gave an example of a case that actually collapsed. And I'm just a little bit concerned that looking at all these hands is actually based on statistical at the heart of it. And, you know, we should read that Nordic letter and actually just be concerned for that.
I can't allay your concerns completely, but the statistical analysis is robust by statisticians what do statistics and use particular tools to analyse it. It's not just some bloke sitting down sort of flicking through a hand record saying, oh, that was a bit pushy, wasn't it? It's done as best as it can be under the circumstances. The point about the Nordic letter is that they are banging their fists on the table at the WBF and the EBL saying something must be done. We have to stop this. We have to nip it in the bud. And that is what we're trying to do. And one way to nip it in the bud is to make the consequences clear, both to the people who are cheating and to the people who are not cheating. We mustn't forget about them. James Smith was saying the members of the Monday Club. I'm a member of the Monday Club. Did he mention that it's in Battersea near Clapham Junction? I'm surprised he didn't give the postcode. They won't play because they think online bridge is a hotbed of cheating. We have to bang our metaphorical fist on the table and we have to say enough. And we have to send a very clear message. You cannot cheat. If you cheat, this will be the consequence. because we've got to stop it growing. And we stop it growing by charging, by announcing the results of hearings, and we do it by making sure that people feel safe that cheats are being removed, suspected cheats, where there is a very strong suspicion of cheating, are removed from the game. Okay. Anybody else before we have another voting panel flash up? Paul Gibbons, yes. Paul Gibbons, then we really must stop because we have to get.
So I just really want to say something on the other side that I think I'm an EBU TD as well. I do the events, and I've certainly had players express my frustration that they've reported things to me, and they've gone through the proper channels, they've been passed on, and then the players hear nothing. And we see the case that started in March and ended with the disciplinary announcement 6 months later. And I've seen there's a continual frustration from the players who aren't cheating, the players who are fair, that nothing seems to happen. And part of that is the process that we're protecting people who are accused because they are innocent until they're proven guilty. But, and there's been said, we do need to speed up as much as we can. And I hope we won't throw out the speeding up bits because people are worried about the suspension. But we do need to take practical action. I think that actually the Nordic letter was an application saying anybody but us do it. We want the WBF and the EBL to do it. But they've got people against whom there is evidence, and that they're not saying they're taking action against them. We are doing something different here. We do need to protect the players who are playing fairly. I do think that if something's going to drag on for months, if the EBU is taking too long, then people have the right to ask that not to be suspended. And I do think that, I think it's been mentioned in the chat, that would be a reason for not, for lifting the suspension, not having it if on the EBU side, the process is taking.
That's expressly referenced in the proposed rule.
Yeah.
So
yes, that's eminently reasonable.
The suggestion that somebody's going to be suspended for months and months and months, I think is just not going to be the case. And I don't know if that there was a charge back all that time ago that's still going on, but we do hope the process will be faster, the suspensions will be shorter, and maybe if that's the case, then less will leak out. But I do think we need to protect the vast bulk of players who aren't cheating. I mean, I think there are some other unfortunate consequences. I think it proves that face-to-face, all the precautions we take against cheating are indeed necessary. That clearly there are a small minority of people who, if they have the chance, will cheat. So I hope that we will pass this resolution, and that we will get, if you like, if Ian needs more volunteers, then there are more volunteers. But I do think we need to protect the vast majority of people who are playing fair, as well as making sure that innocent people who are falsely accused are able to clear their names.
All right, thank you, Paul. I'm just going to say one more thing, and that's that in the original draft of this, if there were an interim suspension order imposed, then the appeal against that would be to the chairman. That one was taken out fairly quickly because it was deemed that it was far better that it wasn't me. So anyway, Anthony, unless you've got any residual answers to anything, have you?
No.
No. All right.
I appreciate all the feedback, and I quite understand the concerns, but I think we have considered them, and our view is that we've struck the right balance with these proposals.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, Sam, it's vote time.
Okay, I think everyone's voted. I'll send you the results.
Thank you. My computer scroll bar's gone mad. I've got it, but I can't read it. Okay. Resolution has passed 59% to 41%. Thank you all. Thank you all of those who spoke against the resolution. I don't hold it against you, especially since we've won. I do share your concerns, and as I say, certainly the disciplinary panel heads are very keen not to trample on the rights of everybody, and so am I. All right, thank you all. Right, next item on the agenda. Oh my God, Chairman's annual report. Well, the last thing you want me is banging on for another half an hour. So, good Lord, I can see people getting up and walking away in their droves. Come back, we'll have a tea break in a minute. Right, I'm not going to bang on for ages. I've been communicating with you fairly regularly throughout the course of the year, and other items are covered elsewhere in the agenda. I think our international successes, I think the Vice Chairman will discuss when we get on to selection committee matters, if that comes up. The main thing that's been bothering, of course, is that we've been in lockdown for the last 8 months or so, it seems. We certainly haven't been in formal lockdown, but we've been unable to play face-to-face bridge, which has left a big gap in a lot of people's lives. Not always replaced by online bridge for various reasons. With James's punters, it's either that they feel they're too old, they feel that they will encounter too much cheating or whatever. And I've played very little online myself, simply because I've still got a day job, or at least I have until Monday. And for the last 9 months, I've been spending almost all day and every day sitting staring at a computer. So the last thing I want to do of an evening is to be sitting staring at a computer playing bridge. I have broken my duck, as I've said on the web, and I played yet another match last week where one of your shareholder colleagues was in my team, and it was a toss-up between us which of us had played worse to doom our team. I think it was probably me, but I'm hoping she's not listening. So what I'd like to do, what I'd like to put on record, is an enormous vote of thanks to everybody, from Gordon on down, who have worked so hard to make online bridge a success in this country. That's Gordon, that's John, that's all the EBU directors, all the people at county level who've been giving advice, all the people at club level who have been not only sorting out their own clubs, but sorting out other local clubs as well when they can. I think the game of bridge in this country cannot be grateful enough to the way that people have pulled together over the spring and the summer, so that we've all got something to look forward to when we want to look forward to it. So I'm recording my thanks here. When this comes out in a printed version, it will no doubt sound much more eloquent than it did just then, but I think you all know what I mean, and I think you all know that we should all be grateful to everybody. And to everybody who's been attending county chairman's meetings, this meeting, trying to find a way forward, sharing your thoughts, the county working groups, all of this, everybody's been working so hard, and I've never seen anything like it. In some ways, I hope never to see anything like it again, but I'm bloody glad it's happened, so thank you all. What's the board been up to? Well, the board's been sitting around a virtual board table, talking about things, trying to implement things, trying to encourage things, trying to sort things out with clubs and counties, largely successfully. We've been doing a lot of work in the background as well. We formed the notion of executive working groups so that we have support for the board from professionals who will not necessarily want to get involved at board level, but are happy to use their expertise on our behalf. We have, at the moment, we have an IT working group. which one of our directors, who I haven't actually seen on here, he might or might not be here, is on, and a marketing working group, all of which are skills which are not necessarily central to every member of the board. We're reaching out to the membership for help, and so far it's proving constructive, and I hope it will continue to do so, and I hope that we continue to expand the scope of these working groups. We've been working on our strategy document, on our mission statement and our vision. This has been going to and fro for quite some while, getting the words just right. It's about to be launched on Awaiting World. This hasn't been just done internally, it's been done in consultation with groups on the internet. Patrick Shields has been leading that for us, and he's taken on the massive task of assimilating what everybody thinks and trying to put it down into words, which is what I asked him onto the board to do, and which is what he's doing. So grateful for that. The EBU has had to change. The office structure at Aylesbury has had to change. The office has been virtually closed since March. People go in occasionally to pick up the post or do a bit of photocopying, but or to send things out from the shop. But people have been working from home. It's been hard for them, but they have persevered, and we owe an enormous debt of gratitude to our staff for carrying on in what for them have been troubling times. People have been furloughed. We've even had to lose a couple of people, including one long-standing employee who we were very sorry to see go. Everybody at Aylesbury has borne up wonderfully. And I think that's a tribute to the management there, by which I mean sort of Karen, who's here somewhere, Gordon and Gail. So well done to all of them. I think that's probably enough from me. I'm starting to go hoarse as well, which is probably of some relief to you all. I won't be accepting questions on this because it was just blether. If you want to read it all again in the fullness of time, then you'll be able to, and then you can tear up the piece of paper it's written on if you like. We've now been going for an hour. I suggest we carry on for a bit and have a break at about 3. And we will move on to move on to Treasury type business. I can see the Treasurer is sitting in his chair, leaning forward. So I'll hand over to Jerry Cope.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm leaning forward to unmute myself.
Can you speak up a bit, please, Jerry?
Yeah, sure. Leaning forward to unmute myself. Hopefully you can all hear me. I'll start with the annual report and accounts for the year ending 31st of March 2020. If I turn the clock back to early February, we were on course to hit our budgeted deficit, and we did have a budgeted deficit for this year because of the particular point in the international cycle that we were going through of around £23,000. Our March receipts were £32,000 less than in the previous March. So that rather blew a hole in our attempt to land on budget last year. And we ended up, as the report and accounts show, with a deficit of around £60,000. The additional thing that we then did was we accrued the amount needed to fix our leaking roof and put that into the figure as well. So that's why it's slightly bigger than, if you add the two numbers together, you might have thought it would be. In terms of the accounts themselves, they're put together in the normal way, and Tony Parks is here today, our auditors, who kindly went through them with his usual thoroughness. The key detail for the board was the issue about were we a going concern or not, and that is the trendy subject when all report and accounts. I've done another report and accounts formal agreement this morning, and we spent a lot of time about whether that organisation was a going concern or not. We didn't have to spend quite so much time on the English Bridge Union as to whether we were a going concern, because by the time we took the report in September, October, I could map out for the board a way forward that didn't require our reserves to drop to alarming levels. But we are still losing money. And I'll come back to that when I look at our 6-month report. So the board was able to decide that the EBU was a going concern, and the report and accounts were prepared on that basis. I have not received any questions from shareholders related to the accounts, so I'm assuming that you're all happy with them and that you're happy to endorse them today. I don't know how you want to do this, a little show of hands, or if we endorse the report and accounts.
I'm trying to, Jim Parker's got a question, or is he, or are you showing your hand?
I hope he's showing his hand. He would surely put a question in advance.
I actually think he's reading the paper.
I've got no question, just show of hand.
All right, thank you, Jim. Thank you. A lot of people have disappeared. The images have disappeared. Can we have a nod and a wave for people who are going to approve that, please? Just yeah, okay, just keep going. I've got to go on to the next panel. Yeah, I think that's clear. Yeah, that's clear, Jerry.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, everybody. So let's move on to where we are at the moment. And I've put together a 6-monthly report, which is also in your pack. And we're doing an awful lot better than I feared back in May. The loss for the first 6 months is only, and I say only, 29,000, but that is slightly misleading for 3 reasons. One, we picked up a sizable government grant as part of their sort of support package in April, May. We've been making maximum use of furlough money, which is now tailing away. And thirdly, that we haven't yet paid our dues to the English Bridge Union and the World Bridge Federation, because we sort of declined to pay the full amount in the light of feeling that they should be sharing some of the pain with us. And along with other national bridge associations, have come to an agreement that we should pay 2/3, and we will be paying that at the end of December. Now, strictly, I should have accrued that, and I haven't done, so it's still a hit to come in the second half of the year. So I think that by the year end, worst case will be just in 3 figures worth of deficit, good case, sort of a high 2 figures worth of deficit, which will again leave our reserves in reasonable shape. I think the issue is, can we have a running rate at the end of the year that enables us to get pretty close to break even next year? And I think, again, thanks to the work that Ian's already illustrated, that Gordon and the online team have done, we are continuing to gain online income. We stuck our BBO prices up, as many of you will know, in November, and that has not caused a hiccup in the amount of play, which is good. And indeed, I've just had the October numbers, which are still show an upward trend, and that was prior to us putting the prices up. So I am reasonably hopeful that we might get close to a running rate of 0 by the year end, providing we continue to cut costs. And I'm afraid that will mean that we won't be going back to 6 issues a year of English Bridge, that we won't be hiring staff that we've sadly had to let go. We won't be rehiring them. And we will be looking for, as many economies as we can through the system. I'm very happy to take questions on the 6th monthly report if people want to ask me anything. They obviously want their break. They want their cup of tea.
Right. It's I'm flicking through. I can't see any sign of life. I think I anesthetized everybody and you took a hammer to them. All right. Okay. We'll have a break. Don't log out. Just wander off.
We just do the auditor's bit, Ian.
Oh, sorry. Yes. If we can appoint the auditor, would somebody like to propose appointing Tony Parks, please? Dean Benton has proposed it. Peter Grice seconding it. All those in favour, yes, hands up, everybody. Yes. Okay. All right. Well, Tony, amazing. You appear to have won by a landslide.
Oh, thank you very much. I don't feel I've done very much today for it, but can I just say a quick word, Ian, that, you know, obviously the audit this year is a little bit strange, and I really would like to thank particularly the staff at Aylesbury for their cooperation, allowing us to get in and out safely throughout the initial lockdown. So it's been a challenge, but we're there, and thank you very much.
All right. No, thank you very much, Tony. It's very nice.
Just before people go, so they go to tea on a happy note. Can you all buy a Christmas present from the warehouse, please? Because that will help me as well.
That's unbelievable. All right, don't log off. Just wander off and do what you want to do, but mute before you do is probably the best idea. And we'll reconvene in 14 minutes by my clock, 2:45. Thank you.
Ian, are you there? Eating your afternoon tea? Mm.
It is a mini pork pie.
Okay, well, I won't join you with that one. Not something I imbibe in. Has anything been mentioned about the universal membership, or are we not?
Not yet. That's a bit later, I think.
Oh, I don't know. I can't see anything on the agenda. That's what I'm looking at. Unless it's just me who's being thick.
Item 13.
Ah, you've come on board. Hello. I was just discussing it with Nick Wolven, actually. And also Nick said he's gone on this panel, but nobody's contacted him at all. Interesting.
Well, I'm afraid I appoint disciplinary panels, not prosecution panels. So
oh, right. That comes from the next
someone else does that.
Okay. All right. Thank you. You can carry on with your pork pie now.
Thank you. Not sure I quite got the appetite for it, but
Are you okay?
I'll make it 2:45. Got a few defaulters here. That's beginning to fill out a bit.
Ian, I don't don't think you gave a result for the 4.2.
Oh, it was one vote against, everybody else for.
All right, thank you.
I'll give you the numbers for all the votes because I've got them. I just gave you the percentages earlier. 4.1 was 36 votes to 14. 4.2 was 50 votes to 1. And 4.3 was 32 to 22.
We seem to have steadily more votes each time.
Yeah, that's because I started voting.
Well, how many times have you voted? It seems to have gone 50, 52, 54.
I'm busy. No, we now seem to have a few more attendees. We've got 71. We had 67 when we started. So people are.
That's your story and you're sticking to it, is it?
It is. If there are any names you don't recognise with blanked out pictures, then just draw your own conclusions. I see you've been busy emailing the selection committee. Mr. Mould?
Is that a problem? You know, I'm just a mere lackey working on behalf of
I'm prepared to regard it technically as blabbing, since the meeting isn't over yet, but I can't be bothered to work up any form of punishment other than making you continue to be chair of the selection committee.
I was about to say, does this mean I'm chucked off the selection committee?
Yeah, no, that would be a reward, not a punishment. All right, we'll get going because I think most people are here or near enough. Moving on down the agenda.
Stop giggling.
Yeah, right. The election of 3 directors for this year. Thank you to all of those of you who participated in the online election. There were 4 people standing for 3 posts. And the results in order were Adrian Darnell, 53 votes, Rob Laurie, 49 votes, me, 46 votes, Heather Dondy, 28 votes. The first 3 names will be on the board. So, Adrian, welcome to the board. No doubt someone will fill you in on what that involves in the fullness of time. The selection committee had 3 candidates for 3 places, so that was not subject to an election. So David Bakshi, Claire Robinson and Jeremy Willans continue to serve on the selection committee, whether they like it or not. The L&E, there was a contested election and the result was as followed. David Byrne, 49 votes. David Byrne, the idol of millions, although you're probably not spelling idol the way that I am. Heather Dondy got 44 votes and Jeremy Dondy got 31 votes. Apparently 60 out of a possible 80 shareholders voted. Right, so thank you very much. Onwards, what's next? Appointment of company secretary. Right, somebody nominate Gordon. Somebody stick your hand up. All right, David Pollard has nominated Dean Benton, seconded Gordon. All those in favour, wave. Right, okay. I'm not going to ask all of those against to single yourselves out. I think that would be invidious. Okay, thank you very much. Right, EBU fees 2021-2022. Sorry, Jerry, back to you.
Right, so I'm back in play again. Hopefully the paper is reasonably self-explanatory, and apart from one clarification, which I'll talk to later from the Northern Working Group, I've had no other questions. I think it's true that we're all feeling cost pressures. Particularly, I think it's those with overheads, which essentially are the clubs and the EBU. We've got some fixed costs, which we are actually paring back down, so they are less fixed than they were, but nonetheless we have some fixed costs, and so do clubs, particularly those with premises. So we've got a balance here that the EBU needs some money and the clubs need some money. But I'm not able at this point in time to do the normal multiplication of our income, which comes from four main areas. English bridge advertising, which is problematic, warehouse sales, which are problematic, competitions, which are problematic but actually doing quite well at the moment, and and affiliation fees, membership fees, if you like. And again, I'm not prepared to forecast for the next 12 months starting April what they might be, because it's a long time to April. And I don't know what the situation is going to be like when we get there. Sadly, our articles say, sorry, not our articles, our bylaws say that I'm only allowed to fix at the annual general meeting. I'm not even allowed to call a general meeting to fix fees. So it has to happen at this particular meeting. That is clearly ludicrous in my view, in the current circumstances that we find ourselves in. And I think the board will need to look at the phraseology of that without changing its intent as soon as we possibly can. But we've had enough, I think, on bylaw changes today already without overburdening you with that. So the idea that the board has basically come up with is that we would like not to put any extra burden on the clubs from April 2021. We would like actually to put less burden on the clubs, and we're asking counties, the one group in our network who maybe haven't got so many fixed costs, to look and see whether they need to raise their element of where they do that for, say, the next year or so. And I'm pleased to say that, and there may be others, of course, there are some counties who don't raise a charge anyway, but Gloucestershire and Middlesex have waived their charge, and I'm hoping that other counties will be able to follow suit. The EBU will therefore try its very, very best to avoid putting its charge up. Because I don't know what's going to happen, I can't be 100% sure, although I'm in the sort of 95% range that I can put together a budget that won't irreparably damage our reserves, but would enable us not...
Sorry, we're losing you, Jerry.
That would not irreparably damage our reserves, but would not require me to put up. So I would like to put a proposition to the meeting that says that is my intention, and that is the board's intention, but that we have the facility to put up by 1p if that proves, despite all our very, very, very best efforts, not to be possible. And this is where the clarification from the Northern Working Group comes in. In the paper, in rather shorthand way, I said we would give 2 months notice of any such intention. Of course, we'd do a lot more than that. We'd explain in some detail why we felt that was necessary, the financial justification, etc., and we would certainly give shareholders that 2 months notice as well as other stakeholders. So I accept a message that I got from Leslie Millett from the Northern Working Group related to those 2 items. So that is the proposition. I hope it's reasonably clear. It's unusual, but these are unusual times, and I hope you'll feel able to support it. Happy to take questions or comments.
Nobody interested. Oh, Peter Grice.
And then Richard Ray.
Right.
Yeah, whilst I understand the board's position, at this time, what everybody wants is certainty. And you could give this to the clubs and the counties, but but you don't. You take it for yourselves. You take it for the EBU. And I think that is quite wrong.
I don't understand, Peter, what you're saying.
Well, you say you want to do this, but you retain the ability not to, rather than giving the club the certainty that there will be no increase. You say, well, we hope there'll be no increase, but if we want to, we can do it. We can have any certainty we want in terms of how much income, but you won't give it to us.
Now I'm limiting the amount. Normally I would increase by 1p.
Then do that.
Well, if that's an amendment you want to put, I doubt that you'll get much support from the rest of the meeting.
I believe you should not. You should set it here and now, as we are supposed to, and have done with it.
Okay, Peter, thank you.
Richard Ray.
Thank you, Ian. Jerry, I think I preface my remarks by saying I think you've actually done a sterling job in the circumstances, and it must be difficult. I'd like to know really why you're not taking this opportunity to actually increase the to recover the reserves. And certainly I would support that previous gentleman, that we ought to make the 1p now rather than hanging it in the air, because A, you want to recover the reserves, and B is it will be such a shame if you're cutting back the paper edition of Bridge. And I see in the chat that very few on our stats read the online issue, and advertisers won't in. People like a Bridge magazine to read rather than online. And I think if you recover your reserves and make sure that basically that it makes more certainty for you if we have, and I suspect you wouldn't want to put it up 2p, but at least put it up.
Don't give him the window.
At least can we have a firm reserve now to go up in April? People will understand that the EBU are losing money. This is an ideal time to put it up without all the arguments we've had over the years.
Richard, thank you.
I would second that, but if that was a proposed amendment.
Yeah, and maybe we should take a poll on that. But can I reply, perhaps on behalf of the clubs? Because, as you know, part of this process, we did a consultation with the clubs related to the structure of And a little bit to my surprise, they said they wanted to stick with where they were. I think actually for the reasons that you and Peter have been talking about, that they wanted certainty rather than uncertainty, and changing the structure would produce uncertainty. But the one clear message I got, because I got quite a lot of chat as well as the sort of voting from them, is you've got not to put up this year if you possibly can. And it's that I'm reacting to, because you're absolutely right. Although I would like to rebuild the reserves, they were over provisioned. So we're eating into them. And what I'm telling you is that on my most likely forecast, and you know, pick up Peter's point, if anybody's got any certainty what's going to happen next year, then they should be making their fortune at the bookies or wherever. We are in uncertain times. But I'm reacting to the fact that I think there should be some pressure on the board to do its very, very best not to put up this year, and possibly with the help of the counties in some parts of the country to put it down a little bit, because that's what the clubs have told me they need to survive. And a lot of the clubs haven't got the sort of reserves that the EBU have got. But I'm very happy to take a straw poll on a indicative approach. I've been doing this job for a long time, and I've never been asked to put it up more than I've proposed. So.
Shall we do that? Shall we have a little wave? If you agree with Richard and Peter Grice that we should just bite the bullet and bung it up by a penny now, wave your hand. Only if you're allowed to vote. Don't do it if you're board members or anything. Okay, have a wave. Not overwhelming. In fact, not very much at all as far as I can see.
No, not very overwhelming, I think.
I think really the room is with Jerry. So we'll
I can do a formal poll, Ian, if you'd like me to.
if you could do a quick one.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do I need to waffle for a bit, Sam, while you're doing it?
Yeah, keep talking. Oh.
Oh, very quick. Brilliant, Sam.
And if you can flash the result of this one up on the screen, please. I don't need to see it first.
Okay.
We'll see how this works.
Isn't Sam good at all this voting stuff? Works really rather well, doesn't it?
Yes, taken to it like a duck to water. I've been receiving emails about it.
Maybe it's an income.
Don't furlough Sam.
Right, that's a no.
It's a bit closer than we thought.
Yeah. Bit closer than we thought, but still substantial. All right. So
may I say something?
Yes.
Does it not worry you that people may not come back to the game after we get back to face in the numbers there were before? So
Yes.
income is going to go down considerably.
Well, yes, but the interesting thing that's happening is there aren't many players playing online, but those that are playing a lot more than they played face to face. So actually, what I'm hoping, but there's a wide range of scenarios, is that actually there will continue to be some online games when people come back face to face. I'm sure of that, because some people have said they prefer it. And the mixture of those two events will leave us broadly where we are. But I may be wrong, Chris, you're absolutely right. I'm not capable of forecasting it.
People might just not want to sit around a table close to other people, even when we get the all clear.
Yeah, but they will hopefully continue to play online in the levels that we have. And we have a bit of price movement on online, I think, available to us. Online really quite cheap at the moment.
Okay, so I think now, having had that vote, I think we have to have another one.
Yeah.
To allow Jerry to behave in this slightly abnormal manner. So, Sam, if you've got a handle on exactly what it is Jerry wants voted, or Jerry, if you could give Sam a sentence.
Just say as set out in the paper in item 13.
Yeah.
Sorry, say that again, please, Jerry. What wording would you like?
I would like the proposals set out in paragraph 9 of the paper at item 13 to be approved, something like that. I'm sure you'll do it quicker and better than I have just done it.
And you can flash this one up as well, I suspect. Cool. Right, 92% for, 8% against.
Thank you. And can I just again encourage you to go back to your counties and have a look at your whether you need to have either your full bit or any at all. We'll write to the relevant person in the county anyway, but if you can sort of nudge them along, because that would be helpful. And I'm told in the chat that maybe Notts have also waived their fee, which is good to hear.
And Manchester.
And Manchester, excellent.
Right, okay. All right, thank you. Now we move on to EBED report. We are delighted to welcome as guests Andy Margetts, chairman of EBED, who you've met before, and their new chief executive, Giorgio Provenza. previously squad leader for the young juniors, not the ones below the under 21s. I've forgotten who they are, under 16s. I believe Giorgio is going to address this.
Yeah, I'll start actually, Ian, if I may. Yeah.
By all means, Andy. Thank you for coming.
Yeah, no problem. Good afternoon, everybody, and thanks, Ian. Really just want to do a short review of the year from the EBIT perspective. So I'm going to start with just a little brief review of our financial position and talk a little bit about our staffing. And then I'm going to hand over to Giorgio, who's going to give you some sort of operational highlights from the year. So I hope you don't mind, but I'm going to just share a screen with just 2 slides. I won't be death by PowerPoint, just 2 slides just to illustrate things for you. I need to ask Karen if she could enable me to do that, perhaps if you're in charge.
I've just enabled you to do that now, Andy, so
Thanks,
it should be okay.
Yeah. 2 seconds. Okay, so this is kind of back to normal times, if you like. The world has moved on rather since, but this is a sort of a record of the highlights of our last financial year. So that's the year ending March 2020, which is still subject to audit. We're a little bit behind you in terms of the audit timetable, but I don't expect the numbers to change. Broadly speaking, our income is just over £310,000 a year. We've made a small adjustment for some of the pass-through donations which come into us, which we pass on to some of the junior squad finances for the EBU, but just over 300,000 is the income. In terms of where we get that from, only about a quarter of that comes from the EBU grant, and about 2/3 of it comes from what I call our trading activities, with the rest from various other donations and other sources. In terms of our trading activities, the main ones really are materials and training. By materials, I mean predominantly our book sales, and training is both club teacher training and tournament director training. So of our training income, about 40% comes from materials and about 30% from training, with the balance roughly equally split between what we raise as EBTA, the Bridge Teachers Association subscriptions, and our SimPairs income. So for the year in question, we ran at a small deficit of about £5,000, and our starting point for the year was reserves in quite a healthy position of £320,000. That was all rather pre-COVID, and since then the world has changed rather dramatically. Our materials are down considerably, although there's some interesting changes in terms of the mix of the materials that we're selling, and Giorgio will refer to that in his section later on. In terms of the training side, there's been no TD training whatsoever, because frankly there is simply no need for TD training for online, over and above the initiative which the EBU spearheaded with the county's help of training up people to direct on BBO for the clubs. The teacher training courses, we have tried running those online. We originally ran the last one that we were trying to run in the face-to-face world, but we've had to redesign that course quite substantially to take account of the fact that the world is now a different place as far as teachers are concerned with online teaching. And Giorgio, again, will tell you a little bit more about that. So our whole focus really for the 6 months following the results that you've got in front of you was all about helping teachers move online. In the first place, training them up with how to use BBO and Bridge Club Live, and how to interact that with Zoom. We ran a series of tutorials there. And more recently, by providing our own online learning platform, the English Bridge School, EBS as we call it. And again, Giorgio will tell you a bit more about that. So we look at what's happened to our income in the first half. It's fairly dramatic. The big blue columns are what we did last year, and the shorter green columns are where we are today. So we've had a substantial hit in terms of our trading income, with trading all but ceasing, barring a couple of online club teacher trainings. The materials are down substantially. People are still buying books, and that's recovering a little bit since, but nobody frankly bought anything for the first 3 or 4 months, and sales have been trickling upwards since then. We've had a marked reduction in the grant that the EBU gives us, and that was only £3,000 in the first 6 months, although I'm glad to report we've had a partial resumption in donations since then, thank you to Jerry. The British Teachers Association, that actually represents pretty much our full year's income on the grounds that the EBTA subscriptions are due on the 1st of April. So although this is only a 6-month analysis, that's probably it for the year. And what we've seen there is a slight reduction, and again, a change in the mix of who's signed up for EBTA this year, which Giorgio can tell you a bit about, because there's some interesting differences there in terms of the EBTA membership. Simpairs, we obviously haven't been able to run at all. So we've had a substantial drop in income. To match that, we've been able to reduce the variable elements of our costs, because some of our costs are related to putting on training courses. So there's been a natural saving there. We, however, have to balance, as Jerry said, you do, our going concern requirements, but also some charity commission requirements for us to maintain a minimum level of reserves to be able to satisfy their needs. So our main controllable costs, I'm afraid, are staffing. And despite using the furlough scheme to the maximum, as the EBU did, we've unfortunately had to let a couple of our staff go recently, one of whom was the youth officer. And the staff is somewhat reduced from where it stood before. The deficit overall for the first half was just short of £70,000, which is obviously eaten considerably into our reserves. The second half is frankly a little bit better, because we have got a resumption of some sales of materials, albeit at a lower level than the previous year. And the action that we've taken to reduce the cost means that we're expecting overall the second half probably not to be as bad as the first, but nonetheless considerably reduced upon where we were. So that's a useful backdrop just to set the scene. In terms of the staff that we're now left with, I'll start with the Board of Trustees. We have a board of 7 trustees, 4 of whom are active bridge teachers. So I think we're pretty well represented by people who are actually teaching on the ground. In terms of the staff, we've had several changes in the year. The most important of those is the recruitment of Giorgio Provenza as our new chief executive. And as Ian said, Giorgio has worked with the Junior 16 squad. In fact, Ian, he continues to do that as well as doing the day job for me. He's continuing to do that for the J16. So good news for you there. And we also recruited a couple of new bridge playing members to the team, one of whom I suspect a number of you will be familiar with, which is Jax Morecambe from Suffolk. And Jax has been spearheading some of the video training we've been providing to teachers in terms of how to get enabled and up and running online. So our current staff roster is down to only 5 people, and those don't all work full time. So we've actually only got a full-time equivalent of 3 staff currently. So as with Ian, frankly, I'm rather proud of what my team's been able to achieve and the way they've responded to the COVID crisis. It's been a difficult time for us, and we're certainly looking forward to getting back to normal as soon as we can. I'd like to pass over now to Giorgio, who can run you through some of the operational features for the year. I think he's online somewhere. Giorgio, are you there?
Ready.
Good. All yours.
Thank you, Andy, and good afternoon, everyone. As Andy said, I've had the pleasure of joining EBED mid-July. You may say, well, quite some time to do so, halfway through the pandemic. As you have seen, the situation financially has been difficult, as you can imagine. But despite the lack of resources, both financially and in terms of personnel, because half of the staff was furloughed, and as Andy said, 2 of them have been let go recently, I can say that the achievements of EBED since the beginning of the pandemic is quite remarkable. In terms of products, or traditional products, we have completely revised and relaunched the Green Book, so the book for the second year, the intermediates, more widely known as the Green Book. It's been very well received by teachers. The feedback has been amazing, and the sales have been pretty good compared to the Red Book. Usually, we sell about half of Green Books compared to Red Books. So fewer students take up the second year than they take up the first year. But in this financial year, we are seeing a sale of about the same number of red books and green books. What this tells us is that teachers are more inclined under the present circumstances to work with their existing client base, if you like. So they are working with the existing students, and they're finding more difficult, harder to recruit beginners to teach online. I think partly because clubs are closed, and so they don't work as they usually do in attracting new members, and partly because teaching beginners completely from scratch through the online facilities is much harder than teaching people who know already the game and can practice more on a Bridge Club Live or BBO or the likes. EBED has been very quick to react to the pandemic. We have identified immediately a need for the teachers, the existing teachers, to accustom themselves to the online world so that they could use it efficiently to teach, or, as I said, to continue teaching their existing client base. Some seminars have been run live by EBED on Zoom at the beginning of the pandemic to show people how to use BBO and BCL for teaching purposes, not just for playing purposes. So how to use the teaching facilities existing on these platforms, upload hands, and so forth. These videos have been uploaded on our YouTube channel, and they have had in excess of 1,000 views, which is quite remarkable and somehow suggests that many of the existing teachers weren't tech savvy, and they were literally exploring a new world. After that, we have, as Andy said, launched the English Bridge School. This has been the biggest project EBED has been working on. This was an idea that had already been planned by EBED in the past to somehow develop a teaching platform online to go along the traditional way of teaching face-to-face. Of course, the pandemic has made more urgent this need, and all the efforts have been focused between April and August on developing English Bridge School that has been launched in August. The effort has been enormous by the staff, and I would like to thank them all. They have worked tirelessly through the summer. And also I'd like to take this opportunity to publicly thank Kiat, who has put all of his knowledge and time to the service of EBED, and it's fair to say that without his help and expertise, we wouldn't be where we are now with EBS. And all of this has been achieved, shall I say, quite cheaply, if you think that everything in terms of the branding of EBS, the authors that have been paid for the lessons, the overtime that the staff has had to put in, is totaled less than £15,000. Also, this platform is here to stay. It's not a platform that can be used only in the online world, but even when we hopefully soon go back to teaching face-to-face, there are plenty of tools in this platform that will be useful for teachers even when they resume their classes in the old traditional way. Google Classroom, which is the main tool that EBS uses, like Microsoft Teams, for example, have been widely used by educational institutions like schools or universities well before the pandemic. The submitting of work, the possibility for students who have missed a lesson to catch up. These are all tools and facilities that will stay even when COVID is over. The uptake in the platform so far has not been as good as we were hoping. There are a number of reasons, I think. One is that, well, the time constraints meant that only 10 lessons, so only a beginner's course was available in August when we launched the platform. But we are working flat out to make sure that by January there will be a lot more lessons available. And thanks to the EBU's contribution, we are working now in parallel on the red book, finishing up so the course for beginners, and on the green book, so that the same quality that teachers have seen in the new book will be also on the platform for those who want to teach online starting in January. Also, we have realized that many of the existing teachers were struggling with the new technology. So we are running, as we speak, we have run 3 already and we have 2 more planned, some seminars for existing teachers who want to learn and use and become more proficient in using the platform. And these seminars have been very well received, and we have quadrupled the number of students signing up on EBS since we have started these seminars. We are also working on new teachers. So while these seminars that I have just mentioned are for existing teachers who want to learn to teach online, we are also training brand new teachers. We have restarted the CTT, as we call them, so the club teacher training. We have run 2 club teacher training courses recently, training 20 new teachers, and we have 1 more planned for January, and we will continue running CTT online for as long as there is enough requests from people who want to become teachers. And we are already working on a schedule. We hope to start in May to resume face-to-face training for both teachers and directors. And thinking of directors, we are also planning to have refresher courses for existing directors, because by the time we will be able to reopen clubs, it will have been a year, if not more, since the last time that they directed face-to-face. So a number of things like mechanical errors that don't happen online may need, especially for not very experienced directors, some refreshing of the rules. So we'll be ready for that as well. We're planning to revamp EBTA, the Teacher Association, introducing mentoring for teachers. We're planning also, when we go back to the face-to-face CTT courses, to include a module on online teaching, because we think that some of the online teaching is here to stay. As much as it's happening for the online game, there are possibilities that teaching online is opening up, and the new breed of teachers will be trained on both teaching online and face-to-face. And we plan, and we have already started working with the EBU, so that when we go back to face-to-face, we will be running courses and classes, and, shall I say, a more comprehensive strategy to bring more people to play bridge, trying to attract them from the social players, the kitchen bridge players, and try to convert more of them into duplicate players, and also working in the bridging the gap between students, so that more students become duplicate players rather than struggling in leaving the protected environment of the classroom to go and play with the sharks in the club room. And to do so, also we have, this is another great achievement of EBED over the past 7 months. We have started our own games. We call them EBS relaxed games, that we are playing on BBO, followed by a Zoom debriefing of the hands. And these games have proved very popular. Last week we had 17 games on the Wednesday and 17 tables on Wednesday and 18 tables on Friday. We run 2 of them per week. They've been branded as 6 high in terms of NGS, but the truth is that we are attracting those students whose clubs have shut down and were not offering online supervised play. And we have signed up 441 players who were not known to the EBU, who did not have any EBU number, who were playing in games in the clubs or just practicing with the teachers. And this is quite a huge number of players that we have brought to light. And some of them, encouraged by the EBET staff that runs this game, are already migrating to EBU games and trying and playing in the 9 high games that EBU is running. So we hope to replicate this model when we go back to face-to-face, so that more and more students can become duplicate players over time. The part of EBED's work that has suffered the most, is fair to say, is youth. As Andy said, one of the personnel that has been made redundant is sadly our youth officer. As you can imagine, well, schools shut down completely, as we know, from the end of March to the end of the school year, and what is happening in schools and universities in this academic year is making extremely hard running any activity with schools. Nevertheless, we are not giving up, of course, on youth. With the generous support of MPCC, the Makers of Playing Cards charity, which is one of our donors, we are exploring new ideas to galvanize Youth Bridge, and we're trying to find ways so that bridge or bridge-like games can be taught in school, even when we cannot send someone to teach the game. So some simplified forms of the game, somewhere in between mini bridge and bridge, so that the students can learn by themselves, even if there isn't anyone in the school who knows the game and bridge and can teach them. And also, we hope, if we solve all the safeguarding issues that are very important anytime minors are concerned, to run the Schools Cup online in the new year. The Schools Cup is run the first Saturday each March, and it's fair to say it won't be run face-to-face, so we are exploring ways that we can run it online. And then the JTI, the Junior Teaching, the most important event of the calendar year when it comes to Junior Bridge, that has been cancelled. This year, we hope, and the news that we got in the last couple of weeks about vaccines make us reasonably hopeful that we will be able to run it again in August next year. I think that's all for me. Thank you, everyone, for your attention.
Okay, thank you, Giorgio. As usual, we'll wish EBED best of luck under trying circumstances. Right, we now move on to that riveting part of the meeting, going through loads of minutes if anybody wants to. We'll start with the board meetings. Any matters arising for those? Sorry, I've momentarily lost my screen, trying to see if I can gauge any excitement. None. All right. Meeting minutes of the Laws and Ethics Committee. Anybody got any piercing questions about those? Unpiercing questions? Jeffrey, yes.
Yes. In the agenda it says verbal, and so it'd be good to know what the minutes actually said. I've looked on the EBU website, and not only the Laws and Ethics Committee, but every set of minutes, there are no minutes, no approved minutes for the calendar year 2020. And I realise that maybe some of the staff are furloughed, but it would be quite nice.
Well, I think
to see.
board meeting minutes have all been approved, so that's just an administrative error. I wasn't at the L&E meeting on the 20th of whenever it was, the last one. I think, Gillian, you were. I think basically it was updating on online cases, wasn't it, and other disciplinary things.
Yes, I'm afraid I'm unprepared to talk about it, but as far as I'm aware, we mainly went through the cases, which at that time weren't quite as prolific as they are now. So, I can't really say anything more about that. I don't know why they've not gone on to the, presumably because we haven't had another meeting and they haven't been approved.
I think the impression I get at the moment is that the L&E is devoting very little time to discussions of changes to Law 46B subsection D and the alerting rules. I don't and announcing rules. I think that's taking a bit of a back burner. But as I say, I wasn't at the last meeting, so can't comment definitively.
As far as the selection committee is concerned, all the minutes except those of the last meeting have been approved. So again, it's an administrative error if they're saying unapproved on the website.
Yeah. All right. Okay. Any other issues? Might as well take the selection committee as well, since there seems to be a lack of interest in the L&E. I think
there going to be any verbal reports, the ones that say verbal?
Well, you've sort of had the L&E one. It was an update of cases that that took place. Alan, if you'd like to just briefly update us on what the last selection committee meeting consisted of.
Sure. Yeah. The selection committee meeting, like everything else, has been overtaken by the global pandemic. A lot of events have been cancelled, including the Europeans in 2020 and the World in 2020. However, the Telcher Trophy and the Lady Milne Trophy took place recently, both online, and were largely considered to be a great success online on the Real Bridge platform, which those of you who haven't played on it is actually very impressive. I'm pleased to report that England retained both of those trophies. The Lady Milne very easily and the Telcher Trophy not so easily. Other than that, the last meeting concerned itself with dealing with who we are going to select for the 2021 Europeans and the 2021 Worlds, assuming they go ahead, and of course the jury's still out on that, and with what little progress we could make on the budget, given that you've heard all the uncertainties around such matters that Jerry has alluded to so eloquently in the past. I don't think there's anything much else to say unless people wish to ask any questions.
Okay, all right.
And the last board meeting, was there anything that's not being covered at this meeting?
No, I don't think so. You've been updated. I mean, basically, it was preparing for this meeting, so it's all come out in the wash. Right.
Would it be a good idea? Excuse me. Would it be a good idea if the meetings for which minutes were not available now are put on the agenda of the next meeting of the shareholders? And particularly as on the Laws and Ethics Committee, no one's quite clear what was actually said at the meeting.
Yeah, sure. No problem. All right. Okay. That brings us on to dates for 2021 Chairman's Meeting and AGM. We have actually agreed those, but I haven't got a note of them in front of me. So they'll have to be circulated, I'm afraid, unless either Gordon or Karen can summon them up. What we haven't done is the draw for the simultaneous pairs winners. Is that going to be done in the office, Gordon, and just notified?
I have the bag of
you can
people
do it
here
now.
if you want me to do it live, or I can just do it.
Of course you are. I think we're drawing 4 prizes of £250. So you don't have to draw your mum's club first. You can do it third, second, doesn't matter. The prizes are all equal.
I'll have my assistant Karen draw for me.
All right. I think technically it's your glamorous assistant.
Blundell Sands Bridge Club.
250 quid going to Blundell Sands Bridge Club. Excellent.
Tunbridge Wells Bridge Club.
Tunbridge Wells? That's not right. Okay, fair enough.
Lyons Bridge Club, Saffron Walden. And Wellingborough Bridge Club.
That's Northamptonshire, isn't it? Wellingborough.
So, yeah.
I stayed in a hotel there once with David Price. separate rooms, I hasten to add. All right, thank you. Those 4 clubs. Where's Blundell Sands?
Don't know.
Okay.
Anybody know?
Anybody?
I know. It's
It's on Merseyside.
north of Liverpool on the
Lancashire coast.
Irish coast.
Right, all right. So at least one of these awards went sort of a bit further north than the Watford Gap. Good. Okay, right. I don't think we have any other notified business.
Do we not know the date of the 2021 AGM?
Not off the top of my head. We have arranged it.
Okay.
It'll have to be sent round.
I know it for good reasons, Ian.
Right. Okay. Oh, yes, of course you do.
It's the 30th of November, and you can all bring me a birthday cake.
Yeah.
Sorry, the
40 again,
30th of
eh?
November.
30th of November. And I require a candle from each of you, which still might not reach my age.
It's not going to be enough.
21 again.
Yeah. All right. In
And
that
again.
case,
30th of November, yeah.
I will thank you all again. I will thank my colleagues on the board.
Ian, could I ask, it's not notified, but since it has been a year of lockdown and COVID, could I just ask a question? And if you don't want to answer it and say it's out of order, that's fine. But does the EBU have an opinion about the online platforms, i.e. BBO, Real Bridge, and Bridge Club Live?
I think the best person to answer that is Gordon, because he works with all of them, and Free Bridge is a Fun Bridge as well. Don't forget that one.
Sorry.
I think our opinion is that it's good to have a variety, and they each do different things in different ways. So we don't say you should do this. We try to even-handedly offer information. And as to our own EBU events, we've found that one of them is better for congresses and another's better for regular games. But we're happy, and our club liaison officer, Jonathan, is always happy to try and help people negotiate and navigate to the appropriate place.
Okay, well, I'll just finish off what I was saying. I was just going to thank the board for their efforts throughout the year, thank all the staff, all of them, including those who sadly we've had to part company with. I'd like to thank Sam and Karen, Sam has just cast Karen as her assistant. I don't think that's going to last for more than about 5 minutes, but good luck. But thank you both for running this meeting very efficiently. We'd have been nowhere without you. See you all when you're older. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Are you prepared to divulge the name of the pub where you're going to hand out Dimmy Fleming Awards?
It's not the Dimmy Fleming Awards, it's the
Tony Priday.
The Tony Priday Award to Peter Donovan.
Yes.
And
we could all be there at the same time if you
well,
left.
it might work well because he wants to do it in the pub behind the Daily Mail offices. And
Obviously.
I said, well, you can bring along a photographer from the Daily Mail. And he said, I'm working on it, which means it's not going to happen. But at least we can dream that we might get a little photo of him in the mail. Okay. All right. Thank you very much. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye. Well chatted. Bye.